Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 73, coming at you on this beautiful Thursday evening from the Valley. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you get podcasts and videos on YouTube. Football season is in full action. Your boy's hyped for the Steelers Commanders post-bye week. Russell Wilson is cooking. I'm in the new house, grateful. Still need to get the wallpaper up. We're coming. We're going. But what's most important is that we get you that weekly MMA action before the Apex event on Saturday. So we're going to jump right in. We have Marcin Tybura taking on Janata Deniz at UFC 309 November 16th, which is this weekend, or next weekend. Janata was supposed to fight Derek Lewis in Edmonton. Derek Lewis pulled out, so he's getting Marcin Tybura. Nate Landwehr taking on Doo Ho Choi, UFC 310, December 7th. That's going to be one hell of a scrap. We have Ketlin Vieira taking on Macy Chiasson, February 22nd. And then already booking into March of next year, we have Montana De La Rosa and Luana Carolina, March 1st. There has been a whole mix of pullouts and swaps. We've had Nicholas Dalby out against this Elizao Zaleski dos Santos. So insert Zach Scrogan this weekend. We have Tracy Cortez pulling out against Miranda Maverick in that Tampa Bay card. So Jamie Lynn Horth, who just recently fought, is getting back in action. And then, I don't know if this is completely official, but we have Azamat Murzakanov out in his fight against Nikita Krylov at UFC 309. So we need a replacement there. And then Cody Garbrandt out this weekend against Miles Johns. Miles Johns was trying to get another opponent and stay on the card, but supposedly announced today that's not going to happen. It's scrapped overall. Hopefully that fight gets rebooked. I'm not sure what happened with Cody Garbrandt. But your boy on Matchmaker Monday at bowsandtkos, Insta, Twitter, Facebook page, I posted Cody Garbrandt, Miles Johns. Miles Johns retweeted it, said, I have all but love for no love. But the duty speaks. If I have to fight Cody Garbrandt, so be it. He ends up getting matched against Cody Garbrandt. That's not the first instance, many instances. I'm telling you, we're going to keep doing this thing, pumping out, getting fighters on, build this sucker up. I know what I'm talking about. I promise you. I know what I'm talking about. So much so that I went under 500 on picks for probably the third or fourth time this year. A little bit better than last week. But at UFC Fight Night Edmonton, I went 6-7 in picks. Not a great night in the office. That's sports for you. Overall, at 438 wins, 231 losses. Still more than 200 wins over losses. 7 no contests or draws. And for 2024, 245 wins, 146 losses. About 100 more there as well for no contests or draws. Ideally, I'd like to double up the loss totals. So this year I would have had to have been at, a lot more losses, because doubling my losses, I'd be at 292, which is quite a bit more than what I did. Regardless, recapping this card, I would say there was a lot of drawn-out decisions, not a lot of aggression by some of the fighters, which you hate to see, especially in the main card, and a lot more of that in the prelims. Most casuals probably didn't even watch the prelims. I thought the best fight was probably the main event, but although that was the best fight, it was still underwhelming because Moreno set the standard so high. I don't know if you can necessarily fault him for that, maybe more Albazi, but I'm only recapping this a 4 out of 10. Not very great. Big shoes to fill post 308 though, and in a fucking fantastic card. But let's kick this sucker off in the prelims. We had Cody Gibson with unanimous decision victory over Chad Anheliger. I mean, this fight was pretty lopsided overall. I'm shocked Cody wasn't able to get the finish, or even that he wasn't more aggressive to try to get the finish. A finish would have really helped kind of jumpstart his career. Although he's later, it's already been there, but it'll give some good resurgence to it. And Chad really didn't get anything going until way late into the third round. Cody was out striking, grappling. Chad was just overwhelmed with how well-rounded Gibson was, and the stats speak for that. Statistically, Chad landed 59 total strikes, only 11 significant. Cody landed 59 total as well, 16 significant. But he had 5 takedowns in 6 attempts. If he wanted it, he got it. He also had 2 submission attempts and more than 2, almost the entire fight of control time at 12 minutes and 25 seconds of control time. So 2.5 rounds. Cody now extends his winning streak to 2. He's an even 3-3 since 2022. And Chad starts a new losing streak. He is 3-3 since in the UFC. Both guys 500 of late. So what's next? I have no idea if Chad's still going to be in the UFC, but if he is, I think Dan Argueta would be appropriate. And for Cody, I'd like to see him fight Ronnie Yaya. I love that last name, Yaya. Moving on. A fight I got wrong, but I thought was a little bit of a robbery. Sergey Cedi with a split decision victory over Garrett Armfield. Personally, I thought for sure Garrett won rounds 1 and 3, and I really thought he clearly won this fight. Tough night for him. Even Sergey had said that he thought he lost the fight, so he's owning it as well. There's these new era post-COVID fans, maybe a couple years pre-COVID, with the whole damage thing. Dude, if you control 2.5 minutes of the round and you land the same volume as the other guy, you're winning the fucking round. Plain and simple. Garrett was in control when it came to the grappling and wrestling, obviously. And each round was very even with the striking. You know, supposedly Sergey landed the more damaging strikes. I agree with that. But he didn't win the fight. But this is the best win of Cedi's UFC career. He's going to be taking on very stiff competition from here on out. Statistically, Sergey landed 75 total strikes, 68 of them significant. He was a big 0 for 4 in takedown attempts. Did have 3 submission attempts, a reversal, and 47 seconds of control time. Garrett landed 77 total, so 2 more. 71 significant, 3 more. 4 takedowns and 5 attempts. Sergey was 0 for 4. He had 4. He also had a submission attempt and 4 minutes and 53 seconds of control time, almost an entire round. Sergey starts a new winning streak. He's 2-1 in the UFC. Garrett extends his losing streak to 2. Both very tough losses. 3-3 since 2022. Give me Garrett in a scrap with Cameron Simon, and Sergey could take on Brad Katona. That would make a ton of sense. Another fight I got wrong, pretty dominant performance. Alexander Romanov with a unanimous decision over Rodrigo Nascimento. And this fight was all about Alexander being the aggressor. Rodrigo just wasn't fighting like he wanted to find a way to win. Romanov not only out-grappled Rodrigo, and I wouldn't necessarily put on a striking clinic, but he did outstrike Nascimento. I just think he was more willing to go and bring the fight. You have to credit Romanov for having improved his cardio to be able to do that pace over the course of 15 minutes, because the past few fights he hasn't been able to do so. He's added some weight. He's been a mixed bag of tricks, so to speak. But he gets the win pretty dominantly. Statistically, he landed 87 total strikes, 45 of them significant. He had 6 takedowns and 10 attempts, 60%, can't beat that. He had 1 submission attempt and 7 minutes and 33 seconds of control time, so a round and a half. Meanwhile, Rodrigo only landed 48 total strikes, so about half of the total, barely more than Romanov's significant, and 31 of them significant. 48 shots in 3 rounds, just, it's not great. Alexander now starts a new winning streak. He's 3-3 since 2022. Rodrigo extends his losing streak to 2. He is 3-2 since 2022. Supposedly, UFC Roster Watch is saying Alexander Romanov is off the UFC roster. But after this win in the top 15, it's a shallow heavyweight division. I'm just assuming, I've seen this before, his contract has expired, so he has to renegotiate. I doubt he's been released after that win. Who knows, though? But I'm going to say he fights Mick Parkin next. That would be ideal. And for Rodrigo, how about a showdown with Justin Tafa? Moving on, we have Yusuf Zalal with a round 2 submission via arm triangle over Jack Shore. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Yusuf Zalal. And this guy's on fire, man. This was a fight I got wrong, but I thought it was a complete coin flip, and that's really how this fight transpired. And this had fight of the night potential for me coming in, and debatably was one of the better display of skill here. Two very good young fighters that I honestly think will be mainstays in the featherweight division for quite some time. Round one, we finally got to see some boxing from Jack. He was landing some nice shots, and that opened up his grappling. And he was able to win round one by getting the takedown, controlling with the striking. But round two, Yusuf knocked Jack on his ass with a massive knee as he was entering in for the takedown. Beautiful. Yusuf and his team has shown time and time again. Many fighters from his gym have attempted that. Timed it out perfectly. Pounced on Jack. Was able to get the submission victory against a black belt in BJJ. You have to give him credit. I do think Jack was pretty messed up, though. Regardless, this is a massive win for Yusuf. I love me some Yusuf Zalal. I was surprised the UFC got rid of him for a little while. Was a little bit of a short stint, though. He's now all of a sudden a freight train in the division. He's got momentum, and you got to be really impressed. Jack moves to 1-2 since moving to the featherweight division, but I do expect him to rebound against really, he's fought really good competition, so I'm sure he'll be okay. But statistically, Jack landed only 10 total, 8 significant strikes. But in the first round, he was getting takedowns, 2 takedowns in 4 attempts, 1 minute and 49 seconds of control time. Yusuf landed 21 total, so doubled it up, 13 significant. He was 1 for 2 in takedowns, a submission attempt, the knockdown, and 2 minutes and 7 seconds of control time. So Yusuf now extends his winning streak to 6, 3-0 in his return to the UFC. Jack extends his losing streak to 2. He is 2-3 since 2022. Where do these gents go next? Well, just give us this absolute banger. Zalal and Joe Anderson Brito, who just recently beat Jack Shore. And for Jack, how about Kyle Nelson? Moving on, Canada starts to get its momentum. Charles Jourdain with a round 2 submission via guillotine. Boy, does he have a good one over Victor Henry. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Charles in his bantamweight debut. And that was the storyline for me. How is he going to look cutting weight to the lower division? I don't know how brutal the weight cut is. He made weight pretty easily, it seemed like. But Charles was just able to show off that creative striking we've known about him. That's why he's Air Jourdain. Victor, though, did start controlling the fight, controlling the distance with his wrestling. Jourdain has struggled in that department. But after a few attempts in round 2, Victor went out on like a deep blast double. Charles was ready. I think this was a second guillotine attempt, and he got Victor to tap out fairly easily. But I will say that Victor was definitely having the momentum and looked like he was on path to potentially win the fight. But that's why it's MMA. Statistically, Charles landed 50 total strikes, 39 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedowns with a submission attempt. And Victor landed 39 total strikes, 24 of them significant. He was 4 for 6 in takedowns and had 3 minutes and 49 seconds of control time. So Charles ends his 2-fight losing streak, welcomes a new winning streak. He is 4-4 since 22. The dude's active, man. And Victor starts a new losing streak. He is 3-2-1 since 2022, just as active as well. So what's next? I am loving the idea of Charles versus Douglas Silva de Andrade in his next bantamweight showdown. And for Victor, how about John Castaneda? Like I said, this is where Canada took over. We had Ayman Zahabi with the unanimous decision over Pedro Munoz. And this was quite a showcase by Zahabi. Not only his power being put on display, but his efficiency with his striking, his precision, even his striking defense, just rolling, let's say this is Pedro. Pedro's got a short reach. That's been one of the issues with him in this division. He's built kind of thick, but he's probably should have been a flyweight. When Pedro hits, if you don't move, it's going to land this far into you, like a lot of power. But he was able to roll back enough that it's barely touching him the entire fight. And he was just putting on a technicality clinic in this fight. And that was all 15 minutes. Pedro didn't have any answers. You know, he landed a lot of nice jabs and combinations, but it seemed like it was just pitter patter, or that rolling of Zahabi avoided some of the damage, because even 15 minutes in, Iman looked like he took no shots. Pedro's all beaten up and battered like he got in a bar brawl late at night. But Pedro's best round was the final round. He was down 2-0, needed to finish. Aman was just way too measured here. He was too fast and too powerful for Munoz, and the stats speak for that. Iman landed 110 total strikes, 109 of them significant. Again, he was quick and precise. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. Pedro landed 95 total and significant. I would very much disagree with the significant to the total, but regardless, he was 0 for 6 in takedown attempts. I want to say a lot of those were heavy, high percentage, high effort takedowns. Now, Aman extends his winning streak to 5. Surprise enter to the bantamweight division. He's now 14 in the rankings. Pedro extends his losing streak to 3. He is a brutal 1-3-1 since 2022, and he exits the top 15. So what's next? Give me Iman and Vinicius Oliveira. I think that would be a ton of fun. And for Pedro, how about Ricky Simone? Both guys get a fight for the roster spot in the UFC. Moving on to the main card. Oh, Canada. Their captain, Mike Malott, with a unanimous decision over Trevin Giles. But this was unlike any Mike Malott fight I've ever seen. Both fighters really measured throughout the entire fight. No one even threw 60 strikes through the entire 3 rounds. Mike had a little bit more volume to win the fight each round. But when Trevin threw, he was landing. He was very precise, almost looking Zahabi-like. I just don't know why he didn't throw more volume. Round 1, neither fighter hardly did anything. Round 2 started to pick up a little more, but Mike won, so now Trevin's down 2-0. And Giles didn't fight like that. He didn't have any fire or determination in him. He's just kind of jabbing at Mike at distance. And Mike even mentioned in the post-fight interview he was doing whatever he needed to get a win. He didn't want to be overzealous because he learned from the Magny fight. I understand Mike's situation to a degree, but with Trevin, dude, you're in your prime. I feel like the past couple weekends we've seen this over and over, where these guys being down. In Rodrigo da Cimento, what was the other fight the weekend before? I can't remember, but it's like, dude, you're down 2 rounds. Like, go out there and fucking fight. Take some chances. You're in the UFC. You get half of your income to win the fight. You're in your prime, or you're either about to be out the sport. This is such a weird sport where some guys, you never know. I mean, there's weight cutting issues, health issues. Maybe they had injuries that are never disclosed. Or sometimes they just mentally aren't there, or they're just fucking over the sport. Maybe you see that in team sports sometimes, but this sport, you see it, and it's just, Trevin Giles did not go for it. I can't remember what the coaches were saying in the corner. I think they said they thought that he was up a couple rounds. We need like that Leon Edwards coach. Come on, Rock. Don't let him get, we need some fucking momentum and some motivation here. Trevin did not showcase that. Over the course of 15 minutes, Mike only landed 59 total and significant strikes, was 0 for 1 in takedowns, but Trevin only landed 34 total and significant. 10 strikes a round. I mean, come on, man. Mike does start a new winning streak. He moves to 4-1 since 2022, and Trevin extends his losing streak to 3. He is 2-4 since 2022. So what's next? Well, give me Mike and Li Jingliang. He's in the middle of his prime. It's time to give him that top-level competition, put up or shut up. And for Trevin, if he's still with the UFC after that performance, I got to feel like the UFC brass is feeling like I am here. But I would say maybe the veteran Tim Means would be a good showdown. Brief stop to the Canadian momentum. A little bit of a violent showdown here, as Dustin Stoltzfus had a round 1 knockout over Marc-Andre Barriol. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Dustin. And this fight just became a brawl real quick. That played into Dustin's favor. He clipped Mark, knocked him down, pounced on him for a quick finish late in the first. It's like the first couple of minutes they were measured. And I said this is going to be a high-paced fight. It took a second, but once it got after, Mark was a little more zealous than I thought than I've seen him be. And Dustin was just the better athlete at that point. It only took, statistically, it only took Dustin 23 total strikes, 13 significant. He had a submission attempt, the knockdown, and 3 minutes and 54 seconds of control time. Mark only landed 13 total and 7 significant strikes. Because once Dustin knocked him down, he held him down, finally got some ground and pound for the finish. Mark has now been finished 4 times in his last 5 losses. You hate to see it. Dustin starts a new winning streak. He moves to 3-2 since 2022. And Mark extends his losing streak to 3. He is 3-5 since 2022. So what's next? I'm thinking Dustin and Edmund Shabazian would be a great fight. And for Mark, how about Cody Brundage? 4 knockouts in his last 5 losses, though. That's not good. And you're like mid to later 30s, too. But how about this woman in Canada? Seems to be invincible. Jasmine Jasudavicius with a round 3 submission via Bravo choke. Impressive over Ariana Da Silva. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Jasmine. And I mean, round 1, Ariana was just able to pick at Jasmine, did work with her boxing, and this is how I forecasted the fight. Jasmine did have some good leg kicks, got a takedown late in the round. But after that, it kind of gave her momentum. I just need to stick with my grappling. And she did that the rest of the fight. She dominated as Ariana was just basically gifting her takedowns way too easily and did absolutely nothing from her back. I thought she would be better there, had some jiu-jitsu experience, training with Amanda Nunes. It was ugly, but Jasmine is a beast when it comes to that. In her mid to late 30s for women's MMA is almost like 40 in men's. And Jasmine is just peaking right now, man. Statistically, Ariana landed 43 total strikes, 42 of them significant. Jasmine landed 130 total, 36 of them significant. She had 3 takedowns in 5 attempts, a submission attempt, and more than a round of control time at 5 minutes and 44 seconds. So Jasmine extends her winning streak to 3. She is 6-2 since 2022. She moves up 1 spot in the rankings to 13. Ariana extends her losing streak to 2. She is 3-3 since 2022 and moves down 1 spot to number 14. A lot of the divisions booked up. It was hard for me to find a matchup for Jasmine. But I do think Caitlin Sermonara, a.k.a. Caitlin Chukagian, I think that'd be a fantastic fight. She's on a skid. Fight another girl that's a little bit older, kind of peaking now. I think that'd be fun. And for Ariana, how about Marina Moroz? You know, she's fought a lot of the division already, so she's going to have to fight back because I doubt she's going to get an opponent to fight up. Moving on to the co-main. I didn't get to watch the fights live. What was I doing Saturday? The movers last Saturday. What the hell did I do? I couldn't watch. Oh, I was at a thing with my girlfriend, the Lebanese festival. Had to focus, lock in, couldn't think about the fights. And it sucked because I really wanted to watch this fight live. I wanted to see Rose Namajunas destroy Erin Blanchfield because she could fight Valentina Shevchenko, strawweight champ, flyweight champ. Give me that money. But Erin Blanchfield with a pretty dominant unanimous decision over Rose Namajunas. And this honestly breaks my heart. I got to pull it up right now because I'm already bummed just thinking about it. Rose Namajunas, 32 years old in June, a young 32. She's literally almost the exact age as me. She is June 29th. I'm July 9th. Literally in her prime. And it's just like, how can I compare this to in football terms? She's like the Dallas Cowboys. Really built a good roster, dominated in the regular season, just looked like she's going to go there and just has been flopping. But my takeaways are a lot of the same with Rose, who has been my favorite woman UFC fighter since her Ultimate Fighter days. The flying armbars and triangle chokes and just the craziness that she brought. She was deadly. Great submission, great offensive wrestling, great striking. And she just had kind of a mental battle. When she went viral saying, I am the best, it seemed like everything was good. But then she stopped working with Trevor Whitman. Her aggression, her ability to capitalize on her opponent's weaknesses, it seems like it's all gone since she stopped working with Trevor Whitman as her head coach. I do think she has to know that at this point. It's also that she doesn't hit as hard in the flyweight division as she did in the strawweight division. I do think she needs to be a strawweight fighter. Her husband, Pat Barry, annoys the shit out of me. Not because of him as a person. You know, if he watches this clip, that's great. I don't know you. I don't have any real beef with you. But their relationship is weird. Seeing the interviews on the Ariel Helwani show, the entire 25 minutes of the fight, and every fight he's had since being leading the corner, he's just yelling at Rose, okay, when she moves, when she goes, 10-8. Like, what is that doing? I don't know. It just doesn't seem proper, professional. What the fuck is going on? And his game plan is like, okay, Rose, you're quick. You got a good twitch. You got some decent power and precision. Just stay at like kickboxing range and bounce in and out of combinations to get just out of the range so that Erin can't take you down or land shots of her own. That isn't what made Rose great. I do think this is ruining her career at this point at 32, in my opinion. She did okay in the first 2 rounds. She never really dominated the fight. She was very calm, cool, collected. She was just able to take advantage of a 25-year-old in Erin who started slow and probably was somewhat star-shocked. Just like Tracy Cortez was, she admitted it's like, oh my gosh, I'm fighting Rose Namajunas. Like, I'm sure Blanchfield felt that at some point. And Rose was able to take advantage for 10 minutes. But the takedown that Erin got late in the second, after taking quite a few big shots, like Rose was giving it her all, it had to have built confidence for Erin. Credit to Erin. She got dominated by Manon Fiorot, but she showed a lot of things. And it really carried over into this fight. Rounds 3 through 5, Erin just did what she wanted in the grappling area. Rose isn't no just pushover there. We know Erin's got advantages there for probably most of the people that she fights. But she continued to come forward against Rose, get in Rose's face, and just make it a little bit of a brawl. Enough to win the final 3 rounds. Rose's pressure, the kicks that she had that knocked out Zhang Weilei, her creativity with her strikes, it seems all gone. Pat has turned her into a point fighter. Again, you have to credit Erin, her team, for the willingness to just be able to pivot and throw their game plan out the window mid-fight and make changes on the fly. They have really showcased that. And for the fighter, that's not easy to do. At 25 years old, she's mature above her years. She was taking shots, man. She wasn't deterred. She continued to be determined and tough. Well done for Erin Blanchfield. I do have to give her credit. It just sucks because I'm a massive Rose fan, and I just feel like she's in shambles right now. Regardless, Erin landed 193 total strikes, 110 of them significant. She only did get 2 takedowns in 8 attempts. Rose was doing well and scrambling in the first 3 rounds. She just seemed to be getting tired, which is not very Rose-like either. And she had 8 minutes and 54 seconds of control time. So you could imagine Rose wins rounds 1 and 2. 8 minutes and 54 seconds. That's almost 10 minutes, 2 rounds. And Rose landed 101 total, so 92 less. 94 significant, so about 20 less. She had 1 takedown in 4 attempts. And she started grappling when she was getting beat in the 3rd, maybe the 4th. But Erin starts a new winning streak. She is 5-1 since 2022. She stays at number 3 in the rankings. Rose ends that 2-fight winning streak. She starts a new losing streak. She is 2-2 since 2022 in the flyweight division, and she moves down 2 spots in the rankings to number 6. Hate to see it. Regardless, I really do think Erin should face off with Alexa Grasso, the former champion. She asked for it. She's very respectful in doing so, and I think that's going to be the case. And for Rose, who knows, man? Again, a win here would have gave her the Valentina fight, champ versus champ showdown. Be the best version of yourself. You went to this new division. Okay, let's see what you got. But she just in the final 3 rounds fought like it didn't matter. She doesn't care about fighting Valentina. She had no fire, no desire. And she probably just cares about working on her farm in Colorado more. But Rose, I do think the Macy Barber fight should be next because there is some drama there. We have no idea what's going on with Macy Barber's health and if she can fight anytime soon. And mentally, who knows where Rose is and what Pat wants her to do. And yeah, bummer. Very gritty performance by Erin Blanchfield, though. You have to give her credit. I love to see it. 25 years old, man. Very impressive. Her parents, her coaches. She's surrounding herself with the right people. You can see it. Moving on, speaking about a guy coming back and just being a fucking man, Brandon Moreno with the unanimous decision over Amir Albazi. I got this fight wrong again, but I am happy to say so. I love me some Brandon Moreno. I doubted his headspace, his mental game. But I'm not also... You got to consider the injury here for Amir. I think it was a pretty serious neck injury, maybe even some spinal stuff. That could have affected him. We have no idea. I haven't seen him say anything. This was not the fight I was expecting from Amir at all. I was expecting takedowns early and often, but he was just okay kickboxing with Moreno. It's like, really, bro? I was expecting at least 5 takedowns in round 1. That kickboxing with Moreno is just not going to work. Also, where was Brandon at mentally? Would he show up? Is he going to be really, determined here? But after taking the time off, he was ready for the occasion. He wants that belt back, man. Get back to the title. This fight was a lot like the first 2 rounds of the Blanchfield-Rose fight, where Brandon was just popping in and out of combos, staying at range, and just piecing Amir up. But it happened over the course of 25 minutes. Amir only got 1 takedown, and that was in round 2. I think late in round 2. And that was his first attempt. The rest of the fight, he hardly went for takedowns at full effort. I was expecting more action, more chaos, especially in the flyweight division. You seem like that's kind of the norm now. And really, this could have been a title eliminator fight for Amir. But he didn't have the desire. He was just getting pieced up from range. His face got pretty beat up. Yeah, it just didn't seem like he was right that night. And that's the thing with fighting. Some nights it's just not your night, no matter what. Statistically, Brandon landed 132 total and significant strikes. He was 0 for 1 in takedowns. And Amir landed 63 total and significant. He had 1 takedown in 4 attempts. So Brandon ends his 2-fight losing streak. He starts a new winning streak. He's 3-3 since 22 and stays at number 2 in the rankings. Amir ends that 6-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. That's his first loss in the UFC. He stays at number 3. Logically, Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval, that's the next logical fight. They've already fought twice, though. It's been split. So I'm going to say a new opponent. I think Alex Perez would be ideal because it's the closest guy in the rankings he hasn't fought. He's already fought Kai France, all the dudes. And another win gets you into the title. I feel like Royval earned the title shot with that Tatsuro Taira victory. I could see Amir fighting Tatsuro Taira. I hope because he's so young they don't give him that fight. So I'm going to go Amir and Asu Almabayev, 2 stylistically similar opponents. That's the fight I want to see. But yeah, again, I gave it a 4 out of 10. I expected more in the co-main and main. Credit Aaron, credit Brandon Moreno for the bounce back. And Canada did its thing. Jasmine Jasdavicius, man. Watch out for her. But this weekend, back to the Apex Fight Night Vegas 100. Prelims at 1 p.m. Pacific. Main card at 4 p.m. Pacific. All on ESPN+. Again, it's football season. To preview this card, I'm so bummed about the Cody Miles fight. That's a big hit for this card. I was stoked for that matchup. I thought that was the fight of the card. I would say the prelims for most fight fans probably worth skipping. It's very Apex-y, so to speak. I am excited for the Cody Stamen, Damon Blackshear fight. That's fun. I wish Miles got a short notice opponent, but he didn't. I do think watching the Mansur Dusko Todorovic fight is intriguing. But other than that, the only enticing fight I see is the main event with Protz. Another tough matchup. Want to get a measuring stick to see how good he is. So I'm previewing this a 4 out of 10. Quite a few fights we won't break down, but solid fights. We have that short notice fight of Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos taking on Zachary Scrogan, who's 7-0, making his UFC debut. We have Bellator alum Gaston Bolanos taking on Contender Series alum Cortavius Romeos. Ultimate Fighter winner Ricky Tercios taking on Bernardo Sopa, which is the second to last fight. And again, the Cody to Miles fight is off. We're previewing 4 prelim fights, though, so let's kick it off. We got Trayshawn Mr. Vicious Gore, 30 years old with a 5-2 record, taking on Antonio Malvado Tricoli, 33 years old with a 12-4 record. I really think this is a bounce-back fight for Trayshawn, in my opinion, but Antonio's solid on the feet. He's going to make it a challenge, so he could be in for a fun fight. But I do expect Gore to take him down, smother him, exhaust him, find a path to a finish in late round 1 or round 2. But breaking this down, Trayshawn is an Ultimate Fighter alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak, only 1-2 since 2022, post his Ultimate Fighter days. 2 of his 4 wins are via submission. Now, Antonio is a Legacy FC Jungle Fight and Contender Series alum. Although he did not earn his contract in the UFC from Contender Series, that was a no-contest fight. The reason he was signed is he accepted a short-notice bout against Shara Magomedov, and he was actually pretty competitive there. 5 of his 12 wins are via submission, 3 via knockout, so 8 of his 12 wins via finish, and he has a 7-inch reach advantage. Both of these dudes in their primes, they have to make moves to keep their UFC roster spot. The middleweight division's pretty deep, so it should make for a fun showdown. Again, I do think Trayshawn has a higher ceiling. He's just the better athlete overall. But Antonio's reach advantage is a big advantage. And Gore can get overzealous sometimes, so it's, you never know in the fighting game. But I'm taking Trayshawn Gore. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Hopefully like the Steelers, keeping that winning streak going on. I'm all on Pittsburgh underdogs this weekend. I think 2.5. Put your money on them. Russell Wilson over props. Najee Harris over props. Your boy's feeling good about the black and yellow. Now, Antonio is a Legacy FC Jungle Fight and Contender Series alum. I already said that. I already said we're taking Trayshawn. Moving on. I'm excited for this fight. We have Damon Da Monster Blackshear, 30 years old with a 14-7-1 record, taking on Cody the Spartan Stamen, 34 years old with a 21-7-1 record. I mean, there's a lot of hate that comes Cody's way online anyways. I do think he's been a steady fighter in the division. He's no slouch. He hasn't been able to get that big win that boosts his career. But this is a solid chance for him while he's in his prime still. But Damon's a stud, man. He's faced Murderers Row in the UFC already. He's just now entering his prime. With those tough outings, I think it's helped him grow. And he's always had to face stiff competition. I do think the pressure is on him and on for Cody at 34. But again, I think this has fight of the night potential, so make sure to tune in for this one. And if you're like me, you can't maybe watch it, ESPN Plus, baby. If you're a Verizon phone, is Verizon your phone provider? I just got into the new bundling plan. You get Disney bundle for like $5, Apple One for $5. I got Max and Netflix for $10. Way cheaper than what it is MSRP. Check it out. Anyways, Damon is a Cage Fury, Bellator, and Titan FC alum. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Is only 2-3-1 in the UFC. 9 of his 14 wins are via submission. Much like, who else did we talk about in the bench? Oh, Pedro Munoz. Cody just has short reach, man. So Damon has a 7.5-inch reach advantage and a 5-inch leg reach advantage. He likes to do both, strike and kick. Cody trains out of Extreme Couture. He has a blue belt in BJJ, a D2 wrestling background out of Grand Valley State. He's on a 2-fight losing streak and is 2-3 since 2022, and 7 of his 21 wins are via knockout. Cody's a solid striker with good wrestling, but again, so is Blackshear. He also has that massive length advantage that should pay dividends to keep the fight at the distance he wants. I expect a lot of action early, and I believe this has the potential to avoid a decision, with both men being pressure fighters, a little bit desperate right now in their primes. The window is now. I'm taking Damon Blackshear. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. I'm even looking at who I picked here, and I'm like, but let's go with it. We got Matthew the Jedi Semmelsberger, 31 years old with an 11-7 record, taking on Charles Chuck Buffalo Radke, 34 years old with a 9-4 record. We get two dudes in their prime again, a little bit in desperation mode, so they can't leave anything on the canvas. Well, they can. We've seen Rodrigo do it. We've seen Trevin Giles do it. Hopefully these guys don't do it. I do think Matthew has a higher IQ and is a little bit more well-rounded. Charles is probably going to have the power advantage. I do think Charles is the best version of himself as a fighter right now. So I do expect a collision course here. Very aggressive fighters. They could probably use a bonus if I were to guess on their finances. So tune in. Breaking it down, Matthew has a blue belt in BJJ, a purple belt in Muay Thai. He's a Cage Fury alum. I think he was a Cage Fury champ. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, 2-4 since 2022. 6 of his 11 wins are via knockout, and he does rock a 3-inch reach advantage. Charles is a Bellator and Cage Fury alum as well. I think he was a Cage Fury champ. He's on a 2-fight losing streak, 2-2 in the UFC. 4 of his 9 wins are via knockout. Again, I think both men are going to meet in the middle, make this a brawl, so don't blink. This one's going to be high-paced, high action. I do not expect this to go to the scorecards, but I'm taking the underdog. I'm taking Matthew Semmelsberger. The underdog's coming to eat. Hoo-hoo. I'm not putting this on any parlays, though. Not that confident. Moving in, the final fight in the prelims, we have the veteran Karolina Kowalkiewicz, 39 years old with a 16-8 record and the number 15 next to her name, taking on Denise D. Gomes, 24 years old with a 9-3 record. Now this matchup is between two women who are in a lot different positions in their MMA careers, but they have had a good amount of success in the division. They're both ready to continue top 15 opponents with the win. Breaking it down, Carolina is a KSW alum and former champion. She's also an Invicta alum. She's on a 1-fight winning streak, 4-1 since 2022, and she has a 2.5-inch leg reach advantage. Denise is an Invicta and Contender Series alum. She's on a 1-fight winning streak, 4-2 in the UFC. 6 of her 9 wins are via knockout. Now Denise, quite a bit younger. 15 years younger. She's a powerful striker for the division. She hasn't been great with her defensive grappling, so I do expect Carolina to put a test there. But she is a solid kickboxer with her KSW background and is sound defensively. I think if Carolina can avoid the striking battle, find ways to exhaust Denise with clinches, fighting up against the cage, it will pay dividends if the fight can continue to go on through rounds 2 and 3. She will have those advantage, have those openings the further the fight goes. But Denise is powerful, 15 years difference. I am taking Denise Gomes, but I am not putting that on any parlays where possible. Moving on to the main card, we have Mansour Abdul Malik, 27 years old with a 6-0 record, taking on Dusko Thunder Todorovic, 30 years old with a 12-4 record. I mean, honestly, Dusko came into the UFC pretty solidly since his Contender Series contract, but he's faced stiff competition. He hasn't really got to go his career going. He had a knee injury. He's now in his prime at 30, but he hasn't fought in 20 months, so almost 2 years with that knee injury. Much like a lot of fighters, let's see how he responds. But he's facing a really green fighter, only 6-0 pro, at 27 years old, but very aggressive, wrestling-heavy, powerful fighter in Mansour, who completely dominated in his Contender Series fight. But again, he lacks the experience and hasn't faced the level of competition Dusko has. Now, Mansoor is an LFA and Contender Series alum. He's undefeated, 6-fight winning streak, 1-0 in the UFC. I count the Contender Series matchups as UFC bouts and sometimes the semifinals, but mostly finals of the Ultimate Fighter. 5 of his 6 wins are via knockout, and he is rocking a 5.5-inch reach advantage. Dusko is an orthodox fighter. He has a black belt in BJJ and Taekwondo. He's a Contender Series alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 1-2 since 2022. 8 of his 12 wins are via knockout, 3 via submission, so 11 of his 12 wins come via finish. And 3 of his 4 losses are via knockout, so to knock out or be knocked out. I feel like I'm one of the only people picking Dusko and picking Matthew Semmelsberger. I've thought Dusko has looked pretty solid, pretty well-rounded since he's come to the UFC. He got caught versus a very long striker in Chidi Nokwani. He went toe-to-toe with Gregory Rodriguez, who was a savage back in 2021. I do think he's more than capable of defending takedowns and making this his style of fight against Mansoor, who again is very green. If things don't go his way, how's he going to respond? Mansoor, though, is very powerful. Dusko has been caught a few times, so he has to be smart with his offensive attack. If Mansoor can't get takedowns, I'm interested to see what he does. How does his game plan adjust? But having the reach advantage, probably the power advantage, very nice benefits. I am taking the more experienced, solid, all-around fighter here. I'm taking the underdog. I'm taking Dusko Todorovic, but don't have the balls for any parlays. Should be fun. It's always fun to watch these guys like Mansoor, who you see the potential in. Like, what can they do? Give me a little bit better competition. Moving on, we have Jillian the Savage Robertson, 29 years old with a 14-8 record and the number 14 next to her name, taking on Luana Pinheiro, 30 years old with an 11-3 record and the number 13 next to her name. Now, this fight is grappler on grappler crime. Jillian has been in the UFC for quite a while. She's kind of coming into her own as she nears her prime, or probably is in her prime. Luana has moved up to face stiff competition, but hasn't fared well since she's done that against other quality grappler-capable women. So I do think this is a very interesting matchup for her, as she's going to have to be somewhat desperate to get a win. Breaking it down, Jillian has a BJJ and kickboxing style. She trains out of the Goat Shed Academy with Dean Thomas. She does have a black belt in BJJ. She's an Ultimate Fighter alum. 2 of her last 4 fights have been performance of the night. She's showing up, she's showing out. And she's got some nice accolades. She has the most finishes in flyweight division history at 7. The most submission wins in UFC women's history at 7. The most submission wins in UFC women's flyweight division history at 6, because she fought strawweight too. She has the highest top position percentage in UFC women's flyweight division at 41.9%. She's on a 2-fight winning streak, 4-2 since 2022, and 9 of her 14 wins are via submission. Luana has a black belt in judo and a purple belt in BJJ. She is a Brave and Contender Series alum. She's on a 2-fight losing streak, 1-2 since 2022. 5 of her 11 wins are via submission, and she does have a 2.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, can Luana submit the submission artist? Who's going to be the better striker? I do think Jillian is going to be better in both places. She does have a better corner. I think Dean is going to set her up with a great game plan and give her the best path to victory. For that reason, I'm taking the Savage Jillian Robertson. I am putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. This fight's pretty exciting. We have Gerald GM3 Mearshart, 36 years old with a 27-17 record, taking on Rainier the Dutch Knight de Ridder, 34 years old, 0-0 in the UFC, but is a former 1 championship, 2 division champion at light heavyweight and middleweight, and he was dethroned by the new 3 weight class champion Anatoly Malkin And he's getting thrown in the UFC against a vet who is well-rounded, definitely not an easy out, and is kind of feeling himself after a couple quality wins at 36. Both men have trained at the same gym. Although different promotions, I'm assuming they've probably sparred together before, maybe grappled together. There's got to be some familiarity. So there is a lot of intrigue here. Breaking it down, Gerald has a BJJ kickboxing and taekwondo style. He trains out of Killcliff FC. He has a black belt in Rofu Sport kickboxing and BJJ. He has the most submission wins in UFC middleweight division history at 11. He has the highest finish rate in UFC history with 12 finishes, 12 wins, 100% finish at a minimum of 10 wins. He has the most finishes in UFC middleweight division history at 12. He's a King of the Cage, Titan FC, and RFA alum. He's a former RFA champion. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, 3-3 since 2022. 29 of his 37 wins are via submission, 6 via knockout, 35 of 37 wins via finish. This dude is a finisher, man. 8 of his 17 losses are also via submission. Kind of interesting. Rainier also trains out of Killcliff FC. He has a black belt in judo and BJJ. Again, he is a former one championship champion in middleweight and light heavyweight. At middleweight, he had 2 successful defenses. He had the 2020 submission of the year against Angla Song and the 2022 submission of the year against Vitaly Bigdash, all at 1. He's the third double champion in one championship history. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 3-2 since 2022. The 2 losses were against the now 3 weight class champion and Anatoly Malikin. 11 of his 17 wins are via submission, 4 via knockout, so 15 of his 17 wins via finish. So he's a finisher as well. And both of his losses are via knockout. I do think here, due to the miles and the wars that Gerald has been in, it's easier to take the newcomer that's a little bit younger. Obviously, the UFC thinks highly of him. Not many times do they sign someone from one championship. I think we will see a ton of tight decisions as both men are really good submission artists. So I doubt that we see that or a knockout. But I am excited to see what Rainier is capable of. I haven't watched him fight. Honestly, I'm not watching film. But I am taking the Dutch Knight, Rainier de Ridder. I am not putting this on my parlay. I do think they offer this to Gerald. They train together. He's like, all right, I've had some success there. And Gerald's a wild card, man. 44 professional fights. 35 of 37 VF. I mean, come on. Got to give the guy credit. But let's move on to the most apexy main event of all time. A Neil Magny fight. We have Carlos the Nightmare Prates, 31 years old with a 20-6 record. I forget if it's Prates or Prats, whatever. He's taking on Neil the Haitian Sensation Magny, 37 years old with a 29-13 record and the number 15 next to his name. To be honest, if there's a guy that is familiar with beating an up-and-comer, it's Neil Magny. He is so familiar with the position. I think he's the proper headliner for the 100th UFC Apex event, with the big crowd, not, 50 people maybe. He's been the top 15 gatekeeper for quite some time. He's humbled some up-and-coming prospects like Mike Malott. He did get beat pretty decisively in his last fight, but he also humbled Philip Rowe of late. This task is a striking finisher with probably the hottest team and corner in all of MMA right now, taking on the savvy veteran, former military man, Neil Magny. Breaking this down, Neil trains out of Elevation Fight Team. He has a brown belt in BJJ, and he's just a grinder, man. Most wins in the welterweight division at 22. The most fight time in the division, 6 hours, 51 minutes, 58 seconds. Most bouts in the division at 33. He's tied with Roger Huerta and Kevin Holland for most wins in a calendar year, which was 5 in 2014. And he's done that twice in 14 and in 15. 9 wins in those 10 fights. He has the most decision wins in UFC history at 14. Most decision bouts in welterweight at 17. Most split decision wins in welterweight at 4. The most significant strikes landed in welterweight at 2,538. He's on a one-fight losing streak and even 4-4 since 2022. That basically sums up his career. 8 of his 29 wins are via knockout. 6 of his 12 losses are via submission. Now, Carlos trains out of Fight Nerds. He's a 1 LFA and Contender Series alum. He's on a 10-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC. 15 of his 20 wins are via knockout. Now, Carlos has been putting on a striking clinic, coming off 4 straight finishes in the UFC. Has not had to go in the third round yet. He smokes cigarettes, and he's smoking hot right now and full of confidence. Neil is accustomed to this song and dance and is going to make this fight ugly, look to clinch Carlos, close distance as much as possible so that Carlos can't create that distance and get his strikes off. If Neil can get this fight late into the second and third rounds, I'm sure he will have a chance. He will present a problem for Carlos. But the way Prats handled Li Jingliang, I think he continued to run through his competition at this point. For that reason, I'm taking Carlos Prats. I am putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Up next week, hallelujah, got some friends coming into town. House is set up. We finally get John Bones Jones back in the octagon. I saw his new fight kit with his custom shorts. Hella dope. 309 at MSG. It's a pretty solid, pretty fun card overall, but that's really what you pay for. That's episode 73. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. See you next week.